Hello, my name is Ali Khan. I'm the industry cloud leader for PwC. Today with me, I have Danny Wiggum, who's a consulting leader for energies and utilities. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
First question, can you just paint a picture for us in terms of what you see in the market in relation to energies and utilities? What are our clients saying to us? And where's the industry going in general, and particularly as it relates to technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, it's a fascinating industry. And I've always felt the need for energy is so crucial for us. There's no other industry that I know of that so closely correlates to how we live our life every day. And frankly, the success of our communities and our country is providing access to energy in a safe way, in a reliable way, and an affordable way directly correlates to how we live our lives. The thing that gets me is there's so many different stages of energy and so many different flavors of it, whether you're in the oil and gas community or in the regulated utility community or somewhere in the middle. I think the common theme is there's never been more of a time of disruption. We know climate transition is happening, and I think very focused on trying to provide a cleaner energy portfolio, which is not as easy as it sounds. I mean, this is an infrastructure that's been built for centuries, and the infrastructure will be around for centuries more in some form or fashion, but it is evolving dramatically. And I think, how can we apply technology not only just to transition our footprint, but to operate the footprint? How do we apply it? Whether that's operational technology, informational technology, corporate work, that technology is going to be needed if we're going to make the transition goals that our clients have out there. So the ultimate question is, can I get cleaner? But can I do so without disrupting how we live our everyday lives?
And what do you see the role of technology in all of this?
There's technology all over the infrastructure in the energy business. And a lot of it is in the operational technologies and the equipment manufacturers basically creating fail-safes. So when we're constantly either delivering the commodity over hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of miles across the world, or whether we're generating and distributing electricity across the country. There's a lot of technology involved in that, certainly in terms of balancing the supply and the demand, but also in making sure that in emergent events or in events where equipment fails, safety is number one priority. So safety triggers come on. And so I think that operational element of the technology has been there. I think what's interesting now is how do we expand the use of it? And I think the big thing with generative AI is that it changes the access point, and it changes how we interact with a lot of our technology. So it's now available to a lot more people to try to solve more problems. It's not just the people that are the data scientists or the people around business intelligence. So anyone can really use it, provided it's got the right data. But then also how we interact with it. Typically, the interaction has been very rote and very simple and user initiated. Now we can almost interact with it and have conversations with it. And I think that's going to generate all kinds of different ideas and ways to solve some challenges that we've never been able to solve.
I'm going to come back to the generative AI question because it's on everyone's mind these days. What I've kind of heard in your response was this notion of a network as opposed to singularly solving the energy problem, right? We've seen the energy sector is a device-rich sector.
Yeah.
Not all of those devices have been online in the past, right? But at what rate are these devices coming online, and what's the role that cloud plays in that? And what happens to the network ecosystem, right? How will it drive the future of energy as opposed to where we are today?
Yeah, I'll sum it in one word: connected, being connected. And we've been seeing this over time. Historically, these technologies that existed were a specific use. And so they were deployed all across the grid, all across the network for specific purposes. But they were kind of isolated in a way. And what we're doing now more than ever is trying to connect not only the devices, but the data that those devices produce to try to solve bigger end-to-end problems across the system. And I think what technology lets us do is it's our eyes and ears on the grid. It's our eyes and ears on that network. And it doesn't sleep, and it gives us the ability to kind of monitor things that just we don't have the capacity to, certainly at a better price point than if we try to do it ourselves. So technology has become a massive enabler. I don't personally think it's ever going to replace the human interaction with that technology. Mm-hmm. I think it is increasingly, though, complementing it and augmenting what the workforce can do. And so I see it as being a major enabler. I think, honestly, connecting these devices, connecting this data, and in many ways generating data that doesn't exist today. So for example, voice recognition software, which has been around for a while. But if we could apply voice recognition software to the field crews, we're probably going to get a lot more data about the condition of the network than if we just relied on their handwritten notes. And so it's simple things like that. And so I think what we're trying to do as a practice, and our teams are doing it all over, how do we continue to find new innovative ways to apply this technology? And certainly recognize that there's technology that already exists in the system that's playing a crucial role. So how do we introduce these technologies without disrupting what currently exists, but also start solving some different, bigger problems?
Let's talk a little bit about the challenges today, right?
Yep.
One of the challenges in the energy sector particularly is this constant yin and yang, so to speak, between demand and supply, right? So Dan, this brings me to another question, which is bandwidth. Right. All of this interconnection will require tremendous amount of bandwidth. I imagine this is going to be a very chatty ecosystem, a very chatty architecture, everybody talking to everyone. What's your perspective on how we bring online that bandwidth, and then how do we actually leverage it in order to address the problem the way you've stated it?
Yeah, bandwidth is a limiter certainly to the operational field crews. And so a lot of companies have actually entered into the infrastructure business to provide it predominantly for their field crews. But then what they learned is that their customers valued it as much. And I think this is the part of the equation that I think is also getting a lot more attention now is equity. And so as we think about how do we provide these newer solutions to all the customers, how do you do it equitably and make sure we're not just building solutions for the haves and leaving the have-nots behind where they don't get the benefit from it. And I think bandwidth is a key. Interestingly enough, when the infrastructure bill was passed, there were provisions in there to help expand bandwidth throughout the country. At the end of the day, most utilities have kind of shied away from providing that type of bandwidth because it's not part of their core business. But I think it does highlight the need that it has to exist, and it's got to exist everywhere. Because the other nature of it is that the way the network is set up with the fail-safe equipment and detectors, if you do have an area of low capacity or an area of massive outage capacity, just from a network standpoint, it could cause a similar amount of risk and issues as if it was an actual energy outage, electric outage. So I think it's certainly critically important.
And I imagine that the use of new technologies like cloud will massively help in that area in terms of connectivity because cloud is becoming ubiquitous. We're all on cloud in some way, right? I mean, our phones are on cloud, right? We load things up to our drives in the cloud. And now with network connectivity increasing, I think that would benefit that overall connectivity that you're referring to from a utilities perspective, I'd imagine, particularly in the field crew scenario.
Absolutely. And your point about cloud, we're on the cloud, we don't even know it. It's amazing how many of these newer technologies are predominantly based in the cloud. And what's getting interesting as well is this transition to the cloud is going to be very complicated for a lot of these energy companies because they've grown up, again, leveraging technology forever, largely on their own premise. They're now introducing new cloud footprints of it, and some in targeted fashions, others in new fashion. And so, building the connection point between your, let's call it a half-based cloud versus a half-based legacy on footprint is challenging. And so to your point, the faster we can get to a cloud-based platform, not only does it simplify the networking and connectivity that has to occur within the platforms themselves, you have the ability to deliver new capabilities at pace, which you don't really have in a footprint where you have a lot of legacy environments and everything you have to build. I mean, let's face it, the technologies that are out there today, the innovations are happening on the cloud, and for the most part, they're largely shared and quickly getting out to the industries.
Let me bring us back to PwC then. So what is our perspective? What is our point of view in relation to how we're setting up our industry cloud for the energies and utility sectors? We have a massive stake in this ecosystem. We're a major player. We have a lot of deep expertise both on the cloud side, but also on the sector domain expertise in energies and utilities. What are the solutions that we're offering to our clients in relation to the needs that you've articulated?
We are really pushing, and our ops team created this vision a couple of years ago, which I thought was phenomenal. It's that whole connectedness nature of it. I think every utility senses the fact that while they have technology and it's widely helping them, we're not connecting them. And so we've got to connect it. We got to connect our stakeholders together, whether that's our vendors with our crew personnel, whether that's our customers with the corporate office, whether it's, frankly, with the regulators and the customers in some ways. It's all about connecting these. And so cloud is a connective tissue. And I think it is bringing and showing that it can connect things within the cloud on your own premise. But it's bringing this connective tissue to them. And then we are really focused on showing the power of the connectedness. And whether it's, an oil and gas player or, some renewable operator, the value of connectedness can help achieve the broader transition. I firmly believe it. And I think it's going to be the next step change transformation these companies see. And I think the world is different. The industry is different. And the other thing we're seeing is a lot of new players coming into the space. You've got other companies that are getting into OFS. Everyone's playing in this ecosystem. They're going to have to think about the connectedness in a different way. And so if we can show them that, and if we can be facilitators in that, we have extremely sound industry knowledge, our technology capabilities are there, and it's about showcasing something different and unique that helps them hit the broader vision. So it's not just about replacing a piece of technology that's going out of date or moving it from on-premise to the cloud. It's solving a problem.
A lot of what you said is contingent on the availability of the right data in the right ecosystem. When we talk about IoT in relation to energy and utilities, when we talk about bringing that whole ecosystem online, when we talk about using cloud or leveraging cloud to actually connect these devices, so to speak, the ability to be able to use or leverage that data to be able to do demand forecasting in relation to supply objective, scenario analysis using generative AI, all of that requires data, right? Now, enterprises have a lot of data, usually, but it's not usable because it's in silos, it's dirty data, it's not cleansed, you cannot properly label it. With all of these devices coming online, the corpus of machine-generated data will be orders of magnitude greater than anything human history has created for the last 1,000 years. Yeah. So what happens to the availability of data and the ability to be able to use that data in relation to solving some of these specific needs in the industry? Yeah,
data is kind of like our brain. We use about 10% of the data that we have, if that. And again, I don't think we're generating the data that we really need. I'll give one example. 20 years ago, your home meter to manage the energy consumption within your home was read on maybe a monthly basis, sometimes every 2 or 3 months. So consumption patterns, forget about it. You're not going to get that. Today, most meters are read in real time. They can be read in real time, but I don't think anyone's doing anything with that data. I mean, and imagine that. I would like to know, when is my energy usage? As I'm sitting here today, what is my footprint at home? And am I losing an opportunity to reduce that consumption? And so what I love about these new technologies is A, we can generate data that we'd never had before. B, it doesn't have to be structured to analyze it. One of the things about Gen AI I love, and a colleague of mine was walking me through this the other day, you don't, all that time we used to spend structuring data and then setting up a rule so we could visually depict it is going to be reduced dramatically. Maybe eliminated, I don't know, but reduced dramatically because these technologies can read data and it doesn't have to be structured data. And I think you can get an awful lot of findings from unstructured data that's maybe it's not perfectly cleansed, but it's directionally there. And so we can provide that to our engineers and our field workers and our corporate workers as a first level of analysis. And then they can decide the action from there. So I think it's an incredible point that it can read vast amounts of unstructured data, and especially if we can start creating it where we don't have it or connecting it where we don't have it, it's going to be really interesting, the problems that I think these technologies will solve.
Thank you, Dan. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for the discussion. This is one in the series of video blogs on Industry Cloud, and we encourage you to tune into the series. For more information on these topics, please visit pwc.com/us/industrycloud.